established in the free zone is lost. And I think there's the danger. If you look at West Africa, you have countries like Senegal, like Ivory Coast, and they're now basically doing better as Ghana to attract foreign investors. Yeah, okay, I don't want to talk the whole time, so maybe
I think it's a very interesting point you make, and I like the way you use pay zone, because instead of a free zone, because of the way the policy is being implemented, it's turning into a pay zone. I think these are initial thoughts policymakers can actually pick and see that, you know what, we had intents of making these things on paper, it looks good, but it's turning into something else. I foresee we're having a very interesting conversation. So I'll give Nicholas the opportunity to also give us his initial thoughts and what he thinks, what he expects out of this event.
All right, so I'd like to put Ghana in the context of the sub-Saharan region. And if you look at the performance of Ghana for the last many years, Ghana has been performing pretty well compared to other countries. If you look at Cote d'Ivoire, if you look at Ghana, Ghana's position according to the World Economic Forum is around 111 in terms of competitiveness, because that is very important for us to see how competitive is Ghana. The more competitive Ghana as a country can be, the more it can attract trade and investments consequently. So in terms of the scala, out of 140 countries, Ghana is ranked 111. Compared to Cote d'Ivoire, Cote d'Ivoire is about 116, Burkina Faso 130, take Benin 125, take Nigeria 116. So the competitiveness of Ghana is, compared to those countries, neighboring countries, is better. And Ghana has been able to attract investments as it's a democratic country, relative security and political stability. So those elements linked also with all the efforts that government has been putting into establishing AFCFTA office in Accra to attract also investments to Ghana, makes it attractive for European companies to come and trade with Ghana, but also investing. With the AFCFTA, the European companies, they think this would be a good platform to establish an entity, have partnerships with Ghanaian companies in order to also be able to serve the region in terms of export. So using Ghana as a hub, for export hub. Yeah. So that is like putting things into perspective. So it looks pretty good. But when it comes to competitiveness, there's still a lot to do, because there's one serious issue that many companies are facing, and we're not just talking about foreign-based, foreign-owned companies, but also Ghanaian companies, enterprises, is the cost of doing business itself.
I think Nicholas has set us, these are issues you are going to go into the I saw that you wanted to...
I only wanted to add to what Nicholas was saying, that the World Bank's ease of doing business index list is now basically old, because the last time it came out, I think, was 2019. And so this changed the last couple of years. Ivory Coast and Senegal are doing better now, but they're not making that list anymore.
No,
because there was some problems with some other countries who paid that they would be improving the listing. Saudi Arabia, I think, and another country. So they stopped it.
Yeah. So for us to we also believe that for Ghana, the reason for this event and the reason why we want policymakers to understand that these are conversations we should have. We should have it in the open, not just in committee meetings, but we should all have it in the open, is because since the 15th century we've been trading with Europe. And if we want any positive or any feedback from any group of international partners who can look us in the eye and tell us that, you know what, this and this you are doing, you can do it better. They are far better place to do that for us. So we should look at this event as as an opportunity for us to learn as Ghanaians and for us to tap into the knowledge of our partners, for them to also offer their input, because whatever policies we are putting in place here, they are better placed to tell us the impact on their business and why this is hampering business. Over the years, trade with Europe has been improving, has been growing, but we sincerely believe, we at the Institute sincerely believe that it can be more. It can be more, looking at how far we've come. So the discussion basically will run, will be in these parts. We'll talk about the legal framework, we'll talk about the various bottlenecks we are facing, the businesses, and like Nicolas said, even businesses in Ghana are facing, because some of the bottlenecks also affect Ghanaian-owned business, not just businesses who want to come to Ghana. We are talking about the very nature of even company registration. Okay, certain things like company registration, how long, even the amounts you need, to start certain businesses in Ghana, the business climate, the legal framework, the political framework. These are honest conversations we are going to have. So we believe that after this event, we're going to learn on how we can leverage the experiences businesses have and improve our way of doing business. So thank you very much. So this is the panel zooming straight to the first round of questions. So this one I'll give to Charlie. Charlie, you were speaking about Ivory Coast and Senegal. How do you think Ghana compare?
But at this moment, what I already stated earlier, they're on a lot of levels they're doing better as Ghana. Last couple of years, Ghana lost out, especially to Senegal and Ivory Coast. If I'm going back to the subject of free zones, you pay flat tax in Ivory Coast of 2%. In Ghana, it was set up as 8%. So you first, I'll explain it. You first pay nothing for 10 years, and then when you go after 10 years, when you go out of that period of tax-free, then you have to pay a flat rate of 8%, and that was changed unilaterally before the first companies came out to 15%, which is basically if you make a calculation, it's not good for your investment, because you were counting on 8% and suddenly it becomes 15%. And a country like Ivory Coast has just a flat rate of 2%. That's the whole concept of free zones. If you don't want to do that because you think, they don't pay taxes or blah, then don't do free zones. But don't then change the free zone into something which is not attractive for there are some important companies who are free zone companies, the English companies who does the fruit drinks. Blue skies, yeah. And if you change too much, then they certainly will say, okay, then it's not beneficial anymore. So I think you have to
it's even more serious, because you ask me, you put in a policy that I shall come after 10 years, you give me 8%. I come and invest millions of dollars, and unilaterally, at the end of the 10-year period, or getting to the 10-year period, you change it to 15%.
Yeah.
So that's.
It was still done under the government before this government.
Before this government,
yeah. Bahama.
Under Bahama. Yeah. So that's very, and it goes to tell us, I don't know what comment you can make about our legal regulatory environment and even our engagement with businesses. Do you think, is there any comment you would like to make on that?
Yeah, sure.
Because from this example, we can see that it was just a unilateral, no discussion, no consultation, and it was just changed to 15%.
I'd like to take the regulatory framework as a starting point. Any foreign-based company will be registered as a Ghanaian company. So they have to abide by the laws of Ghana. So they are in the same situation as any any other Ghanaian company. So a lot of the laws that apply to Ghanaian companies also apply to those foreign-based companies. Now, there are a number of laws that have been introduced lately, 2020, 21. The Companies Act is a very good thing. At least we have the Companies Act, which was missing, now has been updated and revised and approved by Parliament. The insolvency law, bankruptcy law has also been introduced and approved. These are the regulatory frameworks that are really essential and basic for any entity, any business registered company in Ghana to operate under. Now, of course, then we can talk about the pressure that is put through the tax regime, because Ghana is in need of revenues. Then tax is being imposed, and that is why there are some numbers are being changed. Free zone, but other than free zone, bills introduced, putting more pressure on enterprises, not just the foreign-based, but also Ghanaian companies. And what is essential for a company is predictability. If I'm an investor, I need to have a predictability. I need to know that from now on until that period, this is the revenue that I can expect. If I'm a branch company, my mother company somewhere in the EU, in America, whatever that is, in China, would be also expecting to look at the bottom line of that investment being put in. But if the government of Ghana changes those parameters, then it affects the profitability of that company. And the consequence would be, in the long run, for that company or that entity to choose whether to relocate to other countries. If we are saying that, Côte d'Ivoire has a very liberal regulatory framework when it comes to enterprises and enterprise investments, then a lot of those companies would relocate in Côte d'Ivoire. And that is, of course, a pity for a country like Ghana, who really needs the investments. Now, another aspect of foreign-based entities, if they go to free zones, is mainly for re-export.
Yes.
So all the 99% or 90% of what is being produced at the free zone is meant for exports, which is bringing hard currencies needed for Ghana.
Yeah.
So I think there is a need to really look at the advantages of having enterprises in free zones and what they are generating, not just as bottom lines, but also as export revenues for the country, and the number of employment that they are having, because many of those are agro-based, so they rely on farmers. They buy from communities in the north, shea butter, cocoa processing, and so on, ingredients for the cosmetic industry, for the chocolate industry. So I think there's a lot of those elements that are essential to generate employment, to generate export revenues. And we have to look at the general picture rather than go and see the bottom line of that individual company and tax it. And I think it's very important.
So, Nicholas, if I'm to say what you said in another way, what you're trying to say is that, you know what, there are reasons we set up these free zone companies to generate, because per the free zone company, the nature, I think 90% of the products should be sold, should be exported.
Yes.
So per the architecture, what the government or what the policy is trying to say that, okay, you know what, for free zone companies, we want to use it to generate more foreign exchange for the country, and also in doing so, you provide employment for people. So we should concentrate, instead of just setting 8% and changing it to 15%, where Côte d'Ivoire and Senegal are now doing 2% flat. So what we'll do is that we are going to capital is moves. We are going to get.
Just a small remark, because that 8% to 15, that's already from something in the past, but it was then executed. But now, because the government, with the EMF, has to look for money. So we say always they're looking for low-hanging fruit. So they tend to how do you get low-hanging fruit? Basically, to go to all the people and the companies who already pay taxes and basically increase tax them more. So they will now also, and that's where a lot of companies are afraid of in the tax-free zones. They will also concentrate now on the free zone companies, and they're looking now where can we, because they already announced it, so they're looking now where can we get more. So there's a new regulation I'm expecting to come out. Which one I don't know, but it will not be. It will be to the expense of the existing free zone companies.
So Nicholas mentioned
as an investor, I need predictability. If I have to do my business plan over a 5-10 year period, I need the parameters that are put together to be fixed.
Exactly.
Or maybe with small variations. But if you come and put a major effect on it, then it changes the whole, it questions the investment itself. But not only for me as a company, but I will also be saying to other companies, please don't go invest there because the parameters are being changed all the time. But there are also other aspects that we also have to look into. Is the infrastructure, the cost of electricity, the cost of water, the cost of utilities. I think is important to have. They have a strong effect, and it's not just as foreign-owned companies, but also Ghanaian companies. And there we also need some kind of predictability. It will be. It is very important to have a dialogue with private sector representatives and sit and discuss those elements that are really hurting the business community. And I say business community, whether Ghanaian or also we have investors in this respect, sometimes laws change overnight.
Yeah, you get an announcement the day before it's being implemented. So on the 31st or the 30th, you get an email or a letter that by the 1st, this will be changed and adapt all your systems.
Yes, and that has a negative reaction from business communities because they need to be consulted. They have their own challenges, and within those challenges, they need to raise the concerns and advocate to have a better business environment and better terms for doing business.
I think Nicholas, predictability is very, very important, and I do share in that point of view, because even when you are going to raise funding for a business, you have to make projections to the bankers, and you put in figures, and you say that okay, this is the cost of maybe electricity, maybe this how much I'm going to pay my staff, and they look at the numbers to advance the money to you to come and start your business. So if at the end of the day, overnight, you go like, okay, tax rate is now 15%, it affects all projections, affects your payback period, your net present value and all those things. So it is very important that we keep in mind some of these things.
I was not long ago at a function organized by the Ministry of Finance, and he gave us an update on Ghana's performance. I've brought it with me, especially on the legal, all the changes they're implementing on the different like online digitized land transaction, development of online fire permit. So there's a lot of good things are happening, but where I have to deal with is basically how do you call it, not the theory, but the practice of the companies and how they are now feeling the business climate of the business climate of doing business in Ghana, and they say it's not good now at the moment. So a lot of potential investors, which I've already met in my office, have postponed their decision. If we look at the figures, the amount of investments from the Netherlands are diminishing. And it has, of course, more causes than, but one of the, it's always said, okay, COVID and Ukraine. No, it's also here that who are your best people who can promote investment? That are the existing companies. So they talk to those business people and they say, you can better wait now because it's not going well. And then I also have to mention, of course, the inflation. Inflation was very high the last 6 months of 2022. And then I want to talk about the GIPC Act. If you want to set up your business here in Ghana as a foreign investor, you have to bring into the country at least $200,000. That has to be transferred into the Ghana cedis. And it is quite a big amount for a small medium enterprise or middle companies. We have a lot of family companies in the Netherlands. You take out $200,000 from your cash flow. And now, in this climate economically, where the cedi is worth less and less, then yeah, you're not going to okay, maybe you can put it in as machines. But if you look at Nigeria, it's $50,000. This is 200,000. And the GIPC is saying we want it to zero, so they are in my line. But as we say in Holland, they're not coming from the toilet, so it's still there. From 2017 we've been talking, and still it's not, even with the World Bank where you were with that presentation, it's okay, everybody, all the noses are the same side, but nothing is happening. So it's, anyway. But I wanted to say that it's not all bad. I mean, they're doing a lot of things, but that's legal things, etc. And that is not something what you feel. You feel the GRA who passes by your office and comes with a new audit demand. You see the higher taxes. And that is also in the comparison of Ghana to countries like in West Africa. The amount of taxation, what Ghana taxes on its population, the population who should pay taxes between the ages of 18 and 60, that is only 12% approx, maybe a little bit higher. And if you compare to other countries in West Africa, they have at least 18%, so there's really a gap. And the focus should be on making the pie bigger, so getting more people to be taxed. We are now talking to, that if we deal with companies, that we will ask, okay, are you registered? Are you paying tax? So, I mean, there's too many companies in Kumasi, let's say, nobody pays taxes. But, so there's a lot of challenges here in Ghana, and that would, yeah.
So taking it from where you landed, so do you think that it's a socio-cultural, do you think there's something has to do with our culture, our acculturation, our nurturing that is feeding into this? Because we seem to have a lot of the ideas, but implementing it and it's becoming, or I don't know whether it's a challenge or it's becoming a challenge or something.
I think Ghana has the best laws in Africa.
I mean, the World Bank has also come a few comments about policies and laws are in place, but law enforcement is weak in Ghana. And I think there are some, it takes also time if you want to go to court and do some settlement. And some procedures are very cumbersome to go through. So these elements make it difficult to implement the laws and the policies and enforce them. But as to the social context, we can see that there's a very big informal sector. And this is something like, if the tax base can be broadened and include the formal sector, and some of them are very organized, I think it will help and lessen the burden of tax on the few who are already paying.
So I think you've said the same thing in different ways. I mean, the tax burden is getting more burdensome because we are not able to expand the base, and those few people in the formal arena who we think they are low-hanging fruit, easy targets, we can identify them, we go on and keep taxing them. So that is what is causing a lot of postponement of, let's say, investments by a lot of these Dutch companies. And challenge is best because challenge is a pulse, can give us a better pulse of investments or investors, what they think about it, because he relates or he manages over hundreds of companies who are doing business or want to do business in Ghana. So I think these are inputs we should take very seriously. So let's go to so Charlie, in dealing with these organizations or these companies, which areas, which sectors of the Ghanaian economy do you think we have a lot of inquiries, people wanting to looks promising, people wanting to come?
Agric, basically in line also with the Netherlands Embassy, we are focusing on horticulture and cocoa. Amsterdam port is one of the 5 biggest ports where all the cocoa goes to. But what we see in the cocoa industry here in Ghana is that the age of the average farmer is getting a bit old, and the quality of the land. So there's some issues which need to be addressed. But there are a lot of opportunities in the agri sector, and as you know, we claim that we are very good in agri, in horticulture. We've got a lot of experience.
You don't claim, you are actually very good in horticulture.
Thank you, not me, but and so that's a very promising, and that is always a very strong point of Ghana. That is basically the agri and agri resources. I used to work for a big company who is still here, called Bungalow's Crocklaan. They would buy share nuts here in Ghana. And at that time, when I was working there, I'm talking about 13 years ago, they were already using Ghanaian companies to make from the nuts butter, and then they would exporting the butter to the Netherlands. Now they have built a factory in Tema to do a second process in Ghana to make from the butter shear stearine, which they need it's an ingredient of making cocoa butter equivalent, what they sell to big companies like Nestle. So, and I think that is an example of a very good investor. They add value to Ghana, they build a factory, they employ a lot of people, and they're also in free zone. But
are they up to 10 years?
I don't know if they're still in, but anyway, we can do a whole session about free zone.
Free zones,
fine.
yeah.
But no, that as an example of that the agri is a promising sector, and I think there can be a lot of growth. And we also see it on a field that we should make for the youth also make it more popular to work in agri, in horticulture, instead of that everybody wants to do in IT or something. No, this is a very important sector for the Ghanaian economy, and very promising also for export.
Nicholas, Charlie said something very important. The average age of the cocoa farmer in Ghana is increasing, and a lot more. I have a lot more of my friends wanting to go into agri, but you see, majority of the Ghanaian youth are not looking that way. What do you think we can do? What do you think? Is there any experience from Europe? Any experience, or in your conversations with businesses in? Is there anything you think we can leverage? Any knowledge we can leverage on to make this? Because Charlie tells us that agri is promising for many European businesses, so it means that there is something good we can do. Is there anything you think we can do to help us?
Yeah, I mean, in addition to agri, it's not just the one sector that is maybe one of the prominent sectors, but there are also a lot of other sectors: hospitality, tourism, the construction industry. The construction industry takes a lot of workforce. So, well, what is really important is to encourage entrepreneurship. Ghanaians are, per nature, a lot of people, a lot of the youth have this entrepreneurial capacity to develop businesses. And I see through the different presentations I'm doing and the discussions I'm having in the business community, a lot of entrepreneurs are rising, and they're coming to a state. They are enlightened, they are educated, and they are coming up to a point where they feel the need to export. But they need the context, the framework. And if the framework for that is burdensome, the cost of business is still high, it doesn't help that these entrepreneurs develop. The access to finance is a difficult thing. The cost of inputs to produce is difficult. The unpredictability in the economy is also difficult. So you import products, you import packaging, you import different inputs, and then with the dollar hikes, it makes it difficult to put your prices. So sometimes you have to sell at a loss, sometimes you sell and you don't know how to put the prices on. These are difficulties that many companies are facing nowadays with the inflation taking form. We need to find a way to encourage entrepreneurship, the youth, into developing its businesses, bringing ideas, but also developing and coming up to a stage where they can start even exporting. I can see handicraft is a huge, there's a good potential for Europe. I know that the Ghana Enterprise Agency is helping the youth, is helping entrepreneurs through grants to invest in machinery, to invest in inputs for production and monitoring the process, which is a very good thing. But we also need the regulatory framework also to be more conducive for those entrepreneurs and encourage them, because a lot of them have good ideas, they just lack the capital. GEA is in a way also trying to respond to that. But there's a lot of need.
I think that is running through from the start of the conversation has been the framework, the legal, the business, the policy framework. I think it's something we should pay more attention to, because it goes on to the predictability. If there's framework and we stick to the framework, businesses can then predict what's.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point, because that was still what I wanted to say, is that when you come here as a foreign investor, as a Dutch investor, your first port of entry is the GIPC, the Ghana Investment Promotion Center. And there you have to register and put in all your paperwork, and you set up your limited, you open a bank account, etc., etc. And there are some things which is guaranteed to you as a foreign investor. You got a GIPC Act, etc., etc. And now what I see with some of my members complaining that you have now commissions like the Minerals Commission, the Petroleum Commission, the Energy Commission. They all come out with their own rules and regulations, and they are all overruling the GIPC regulations. And we don't have a lot of mining companies in our membership, but we do have companies who are in logistics, we do have companies who are in warehousing. And suddenly they are confronted with the fact that because they are delivering to the mining, they suddenly have to change the ownership of their company. So you have in the Ghanaian law it's said, okay, an indigenous company is 51% shareholding is Ghanaian and 80% is management is Ghanaian. But they come with rules now that you have to increase the ownership of your Ghanaian ownership to 100%. And they started that in 2020, and every 8 months they increase the list of sectors who have to abide to these rules. So then you have a choice as a company that, okay, you sell part of your company. But it's a discussion is when are you a Ghanaian company or not? They're all Ghanaian companies, but then they say, okay, because you have 40% shareholding is a Dutch citizen, that cannot be. And yeah, that is also not very good for the investment climate, the foreign investment climate. And what the companies now are afraid of, I hope I can be clear, is that from the mining sector and the energy sector, it will spill over to the cocoa sector. And then suddenly you have been for 50 years in Ghana running a warehouse, and suddenly you are forced to going into another sector, sell your company, or basically, yeah. So, and it's also changing the rules, and they overrule the GIPC, and you don't know how it's not transparent how it's being done.
Little or no consultation.
No, the consultation here is always like, okay, this is what we're going to decide. You've got a month to react, and then you react, and then they don't do anything with it. It's just like, okay, done it. So.
Okay, so
But still a good country, yeah. But
we are good people.
no, but I mean, of course, you have to promote your own business. I think that you should protect your poultry industry. Every Ghanaian is eating chicken, every Ghanaian eats rice. So you should be able to produce your own rice and chicken. So I mean, it's not that I'm like focused, but this is not good.
Yeah, I think for me, the 200,000 bits is what I worked in the banking industry for a while, and I saw the struggles. Many businesses want to come to Ghana and they are hit with 200,000 and they have to go back because not many people can just cough up $200,000 it's not small money. So comparing it to Nigeria having 50,000, I think it's something we should look at. And then the predictability it keeps running through. So it's something we should all have a conversation about as a people, as a country, and say that, you know what, this is what we are going to do, and we should have some predictability. So how do you think, Nicholas, European businesses have been managing all this, I don't want to say bottlenecks or something, but these challenges, how do you think they are managing? Is there any lessons for even local businesses? When you talk to them, how do you think they are going? They are, because some are still around doing good business. I off the top of my head, I can see some European business who are doing really well. I mean, I don't know their books, but on the surface, they are doing well. What do you think they are doing differently?
Well, if I have to stick to those that are successful.
Yes, successful. Yes.
I think the key criteria for success is investing in the middle management. And the middle management would, if you educate them, train them well, they would know how to perform and also interact and do the operational activities. As a manager, you need to delegate that to the middle management. I think this has been one of the successes. Another key success has been training and investing in the staff. We have a lot of members which I talk to, and sometimes they just send their own middle management which I interact with during networking conferences that we organize as Eurogym. And in this respect, you can see the level of knowledge that they have, but on top of that, the motivation they have and the way they see themselves as part of an organization that they are really trying to increase performance and productivity. These are the things that are very important, but also some social aspects, like in Ghana you have the Friday dress.
Yes.
So a lot of those companies they bring and brand the uniforms and people wear them on Friday.
Comes from China.
So,
yes.
So you have your own branded clothing to the company.
Yeah.
Other aspects are also social events, but also working with the local community. You want to work and a supplier, and you are supplying. Your supplier is within a community base, women based, but you also go to the leaders and you have a good relationship with the local community in order to ensure that supply is working well. So these are the cultural aspects that are very important and that I've seen where there's a lot of success coming out of it.
And I must attest to the investments in the middle management. I have an example, Blue Skies. Blue Skies have done that very well, because I have a lot of my colleagues who are now in the general managerial role and those things. So I think Blue Sky is doing well. I think it's something maybe the other European companies can emulate.
One of the aspects also is that normally here in Ghana organization, the level of hierarchy, the distance between the boss and the employees is high.
It's high.
And some misunderstandings can occur. If I come from my country, Denmark, our organization's hierarchy is flat. And this gives, if you're not aware of those parameters, then you can have misunderstandings and mistakes happening. So I think it's a lot of understanding the cultural setup and trying to adapt to it, that will give you the success. But
Salim, do you have anything to say about success story? Anything, from some of your members that we can learn from?
Yeah, I mean, I have members who have been for a long time in Ghana and have been operating successfully. It's not an easy market, but you adapt. I mean, there's also a lot of people living here who can be your potential clients. And I think that over the years, the general education of is very good. People but there are still some challenges. We are now doing a project also to. There's a lot of skills gap between the youth who's coming from the universities and the polytechnics when they want to work in a company, so they don't have the right skills or how to write an email, putting up a CV. So we're trying to also support that in soft skills training and use our network to guide them to hopefully a position for at least a couple of months at that company, and then hopefully that they get a fixed job. And as you told in the beginning, we've been here already since many years.
Many centuries.
The first diplomatic relations between the Republic then of the Netherlands and Ashanti was in 1702.
When about 300 years ago.
More than 3. We celebrated in 2002. And then now our King Willem Alexander, he was then Prince. He came with now Queen Maxima, Princess Maxima, to visit, and they also visited Ashanti.
Oh, that's nice.
So that was already 2002.
2002.
It was 300 years.
300 years then.
Yeah.
So we've done already 20 more years.
It's going on and on and on.
It's going on and on.
And we hope to keep the good relation. And I think as friends we could also criticize each other to improve each other.
Exactly. That's the
and you know the Dutch, they're also blunt and antisocial, so I mean you can say anything to us.
This is not that courage. This is not that courage. This
no,
is
I haven't done it yet.
So I think we're making progress. We want to move to, there were when the economic partnership agreements were being negotiated, there were lots of noise about Ghanaian businesses or African business will collapse and all these things. 2016, we were able to assent to the agreements, and it's been about 7 years now. 2016 to now is about 7 years now. Implementation. What do you think, Nicholas? This is your expertise. What generally, what will be your first comments on initial comments? We'll have a program dedicated to the economic partnership agreement. What will be your initial comments on these partnership agreements? Yes.
all right. So maybe I should put the economic partnership agreement into context for any person attending to understand what the economic partnership is about. The economic partnership is a trade agreement between Ghana and the EU. When we talk about trade agreement, it goes both ways. So Ghana would say from the EU, when you import, maybe I'll remove some of the tariffs, and to export to the EU would say, oh, we removed the tariffs. So that's the double-sided agreement. But in this relationship where Ghana has been negotiating, it's an asymmetric trade agreement, which means that all exports from Ghana to the EU are quota-free and they are duty-free.
Just I want you to repeat that for everybody to hear.
Quota-free and duty-free.
Quota-free, duty-free. You can send as many you want to Europe, no duty.
No duty. But this is from 2016, December 2016, and it still applies. Now, when EU companies want to export to Ghana, then there are certain restrictions. There are no-go areas. If we talk about poultry, some elements, some sectors are not allowed because Ghana say, oh, but we'll never be competitive as much as European countries if we are.
Also, you can still import, no? 25%.
And then we have agreed, the EU has agreed on a liberalization schedule, which means that for certain, gradually, some of the tariffs will be removed as and when every second year from 2020 to 2029. With this would give the opportunity for Ghana to be more competitive and not just be overflooded with products. But if we really look at the products that are being exported to Ghana, most of them are machinery, some heavy oils, and these parts and then of course car accessories and stuff like that, which means that Ghanaian enterprises will be able to use them as their machinery inputs that is duty-free or liberalized, so they will be able to produce and at cheaper inputs as the machinery, which is important at good quality compared to other areas, and then compete better in the global market. So this type of agreement is being very beneficial for Ghana, because from 2016 to 2020 we've seen that the exports of Ghana have doubled to the EU. Almost doubled, from 1.19 to 2.27 billion euros.
Whoa.
Now, of course, a lot of those products are commodities, but there's also what we call the non-traditional products, which belong to where there's a great deal of added value. And these ones have been, the exports since 2016 has been progressing by 5% each year in terms of exporting to the EU. And this is something that the government of Ghana, through the National Export Development Strategy, has been putting a lot of emphasis to promote sectors within the non-traditional exports. Yes. And so I can only see that there's a lot of benefits for enterprises. Now, you would be able to ask me about challenges, won't you?
I was.
Right, so what is the challenge for an enterprise, a Ghanaian enterprise that wants to export
to the EU market?
To the EU market.
Yes.
They are twofold. The first one is understanding the requirements. So we're talking about standardization, we're talking about certification. You know, the EU has a lot of high standards as in terms of safety of products, for example, when it comes to food, but also standards in terms of if it's the apparel or if it's building material, whatever it is, machinery. There are standards that you have to also comply with. And there are also other requirements that from here you need to understand where to go to, which institution, which authority to get your certification. If we take, for example, vegetable produce, then you need to know about traceability. You need to show the importing country that this traceability traces to that the farmers, and the level of pesticide fertilizers is you need to document that in order to be able. So you need certificates. You also need to show the rules of origin, meaning that how much percentage of what you have in your product that you are producing is Ghanaian. And you don't just go import something from a third country, just add a label to it and export it. No. So these are the types of challenges, the technical requirements that you need to document, but also understand the custom procedures of the importing country. And there are also some labeling and packaging requirements. Now we have a uniform EU area, market. But when it comes to packaging and labeling, each country has its own specifics, and then you have to understand that when you export to the Netherlands or you export to France or Denmark, there are different labeling and packaging requirements. You need to understand those requirements. Otherwise, you get into trouble once you want to. Yes.
Are they standardizing that now in the EU?
No, not yet. No. It's still.
Because the EU is very strong in standardization, and basically when they have set the standards, because it's such a big market, a lot of other countries take over those standards. So for Ghanaian companies who export, it's very beneficial if they keep up to these standards, because then basically they can export to anything, any country in the world, I think.
Yeah. That was the first aspect of challenges that you have. And then once you go through those institutions, you go to FDA, GSA, PPRSD, and you get all your certification. You go to customs, you get the harmonized system code that gives you the code of that particular product, that tells you that the other side of the EU, oh yes, this is the code, duty-free, quota-free, and so on. But you need to understand the market mechanism. That's a very big challenge. So you need to see, how do I enter the EU markets? And if I'm a small and medium company, you need to put a lot of resources, and it's costly and it's risky.
It's risky.
So there are different ways of entering the EU market. You can start with indirect export to test that market, and slowly you get to understand better the mechanisms of what is going on. There are entry points, the Netherlands typically for agriculture, produce, horticulture. There are also other entry points like Brussels, Liège in Belgium, France. There are different, you have to understand the channels for the logistics and the distribution, and understand who will be that counterpart that will be importing from your side. And then you also have to live up to the volumes. If you are a small medium company producing 2,000 pouches of, let's say, plantain chips, and somebody there tastes it and looks at the conformity, says wonderful, all the technical requirements are being, so give me, I need 5,000 a month. What would you do? So there are some few challenges that you need to understand in terms of the mechanism and the market entry. But there's no doubt that the opportunities are there. The EU as a market is a sophisticated market. The consumer is highly critical about what they are buying. Price is not always a parameter, but the quality is there. Health and safety is very important. So if you can comply with some of those aspects, you get a good chance to import or export to the EU market.
Excellent.
And also another aspect is the behavioral, the consumer behavior is changing. So people are getting more and more aware of the fact that, or let's say that the dietary practices are changing. Less meat, more grains, more protein from vegetables. And Ghana has a huge source of agricultural products. So this is where the opportunities lie.
So in effect, what you are saying is that the economic partnership agreements, I mean, for now, even in its stage, we've done 7 years or so.
Yep.
7 years, and already we see exports to the EU markets doubling from Ghana, almost doubling.
Yes.
What has been the reverse?
So you're talking about the trade balance.
The trade balance.
Uh-huh. So when it comes to the trade balance, between 2016 and 2019, there was, in the beginning, there was a deficit in the balance. So the import or the export from EU to Ghana, or import, was higher than the other way around. But as we come up, that balance has changed to the benefit of Ghana.
Oh.
So in 2019, there was a surplus of trade. There was more export to the EU than import from the EU, which is a very good thing for Ghana.
And for our currency.
Now, and for the currency, but also employment. All the consequences that you have on employment, because you are exporting more. Of course, after COVID came, it became a bit difficult. The whole global economy went into standstill. But nevertheless, there is still a progress and increase in the exports to. But it's changing. The pattern is changing because Netherlands is the first importing country, followed by Germany, France, Italy, Belgium. But other countries now are having an increased trade with Ghana. We take like Spain, we take like Poland. Poland is increasing a lot its trade relations with Ghana. So we're talking about 22 countries, but typically Ghana deals with 5 or 6 of them in major amounts,
yeah.
in big amounts. Yeah.
So there's huge opportunity.
There are opportunities, yes.
When you enter the Netherlands, then it is distributed to other countries in Europe.
In Europe,
Yeah.
okay.
And just a success story, because I had now some time to think about it. During the COVID, KLM stopped flying, and they were flying like day-old chicks to Ghana. So then there was a problem. So the companies decided in Holland to charter a plane, Nigerian plane, and it didn't go well. A lot of the day-old chicks died. So the result of this horror story is that now we have a Dutch company who's setting up a whole poultry farm and doing the day-old chicks in Ghana and the breeders, etc. So that is basically was the course by we can better do it in Ghana than flying it in, because
So the issue with for example businesses and their challenges. So what I want to find out from you, challenge, is that the businesses you represent, are they taking advantage of these economic partnership agreements? And if they are, what challenges? I mean, Nicholas has given us a broad view, but you can give us practical. You can also give us some practical experiences of some of your colleagues. We've spoken about the general challenges, but with regards to the economic partnership, is there any complaints you've heard that, oh, you know what, we are not living up to the side of our bargain?
you mean not living?
We are not living up to the side of our bargain. We have almost doubled our exports to the EU. We ran a surplus in 2019, as Nicholas said. Is there anything you can add from your client's perspective? What has been the experience with regards to implementation of the economic partnership agreements?
Okay, on that bike. Well, I think we've just opened negotiations again last month, because we have a treaty already dating back till 1987, a double taxation treaty with the Netherlands, which is quite important. We're going to renew it now because the business climate has changed, digitalization, etc. So that just started. I think the measurements that the EU has implemented for Ghanaian companies to assist them and for the export to Europe are wonderful. But if you look the other way around, I already mentioned the issues which are basically distressing the business climate in Ghana for investors. I hope that changes. I'm a little bit skeptical about the agenda from now till the elections, because I don't see there's very much of a focus. When I came here in 2017, I spoke with one of the trade deputy ministers who was at a dinner at the embassy, and he was very enthusiastic, telling that they wanted to get rid of all the extra rules and regulations, basically follow in the process of Singapore, cut the red tape, to make it easier for companies to doing business in Ghana. And he's not a deputy anymore, and that story is lost somewhere. And I don't see the ambition now. Ambition, of course, is to get more income, and because of the deal with the IMF, but not like, okay, we're going to ease doing business in Ghana. That agenda, which would be part of a government who claims to be a little bit right to the middle and be pro-capitalistic. I don't see that.
Okay, we'll take a short break.
I'd like to add something.
Nicholas.
Yeah, I mean the agreement, there's an imbalance, of course, but to the advantage of Ghana. But when you mentioned that sometimes there are some compliance issues or some concerns that things are not the way they should be in terms of implementing the EPA. Well, the Ministry of Trade and Industry is the main implementer of that agreement. And what happens is once a year they meet with the EU Commission and they review the issues and they review the status and the monitoring of that EPA agreement. So wherever there are issues that are raised, they are being handled at that meeting, at that level. Yes, very high level. Whether it's here in Ghana or it's in Brussels. I think it's important to mention. One of the issues that I have seen is there's a strong need to disseminate the IEPA to enterprises to understand the mechanism. Not all understand it. But also for important countries from the EU exporting to Ghana, there's also a strong need to understand like what does it take, how to go through the custom procedures and so on, because the custom procedures, they have to abide by the laws of Ghana. And then there's also the need to disseminate information on the EPA about it.
Already I can see consultancy opportunity for Charlie and his group. We'll take a short break and then we'll come back with your questions. We are accepting questions now, so you can file in your question. You can just let us have your question. Our distinguished panelists will try as much as possible to tackle them for you. Thank you very much. We'll take a short break.
Thank you.
But economic, huh?
Economic.
Yeah. Certainly, if you look at Rwanda, they're placing in all the right measures to attract more investment. And also, when I compare it with friends who have experience of doing business in Kenya, Kenya has a very long relation with capitalism and has already made its mistakes and improved on it, etc. And I like that as an example country. It's not that Ghana is not. I mean, I've also done and operated and done business in Sierra Leone and Liberia, and compared to Ghana, that is far, far away. So we are much further than those countries. But I think in the progress, I mean, there was an ambition to become the number one country in the continent of Africa for doing business. I think that's now with Mauritius. Mauritius is an island, sugar, etc. So it's a little bit different. But I think they should look to those examples.
Our audience, I'll pick one.
I could add.
Okay,
I could
Nicholas.
add. I mean, of course, South Africa is a big economy.
It's a big economy, yeah.
But I think it's difficult to compare Ghana to South Africa. But in terms of regulatory framework, I think Morocco could be a good example. We're not talking. We're talking about Africa. We're talking about African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So we don't discern between sub-Saharan or southern Africa or the northern.
There's the whole of Africa.
There's the whole of Africa. And if you look at the performance of Morocco, Morocco has done pretty well in terms of attracting investments and fixing the regulatory framework to encourage those investments. The performance of Morocco has been very well. The latest.
I see Morocco as a Maghreb country. Africa is.
Yeah, but we're talking about the context of AFCFTA.
AFCFTA, yeah.
I think it's important that context to see, because if you want to see, Ghana is there, has a secretariat, AFCFTA secretariat, yes. But slowly you'll be gradually competing with some of those countries. Who would that be? That would be Kenya, that would be Egypt, that would be South Africa. They will come and invest here. And Morocco.
Yeah, but South Africa has its own demons. If you now follow the news, you can see about the electricity situation. Doomsday is much worse in South Africa now, and it affects every business, even small businesses, container businesses. They have to do load shedding every day not for 1 hour but 4 hours. That affects business, and they are not capable or not wanting to rectify the situation.
So there you have it. We can look at Rwanda, we can look at Morocco, we can look at Kenya especially. And then South Africa with a few demons. Okay, anybody from the audience? Yes, you.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Alan.
Alan?
Yeah. I happen to work outside for a while, so based on that, I'm going to ask just a few questions. I happen to be in China and work for a number of years there. So I just want to ask, based on your experience with the EU companies in Ghana, and we know how the Chinese companies are also coming into Ghana. I don't know if you've ever compared how they are faring, the Chinese companies, if by any chance you look at the Chinese, the influence in Ghana currently, and you said we've had a lot of cooperation with the EU countries over the years, and what is it that is changing, and where should we look at?
If I may answer the gentleman, thank you very much.
Okay. Alan, thank you.
The issue, the problem or the challenge is here that European companies have to abide by a certain set of rules. They cannot be active in corruption. They have all kind of. Nicholas was talking about if you want to export from Ghana to the Netherlands, you've got SMETA, so you have to show also that you're not active in child labor, etc., etc. All rules and regulations, and if you do not abide to that as a European company, you can go to court. And if you are like on the stock exchange, you will lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
If you have, and I know that China will not like what I'm saying now, but if you're a Chinese company, you don't give up, you know. It's just you come in, you just pay your way around. We've got many examples about in the fishing industry. Supposed to have all Ghanaian ships who are fishing and they're basically looting the sea, and it's all Chinese owned, and they've got covers, etc. You can read the stories in the business, the Daily Graphic, and in the Business Financial Times. There's a lot of issues, and the same applies for countries outside the EU. They have an easier way to do business. Turkey, because they don't have to abide all these rules and regulations. So it's not an even field. So sometimes it's easier for Ghanaian companies or Ghanaian authorities to deal and work with Chinese or Turkish or other companies, because it's my first reaction.
Nicholas, have anything to say?
Yeah, I mean, when I look at trade relations, I would emphasize the economic aspect of it. Typically, goods that are coming from the EU are high standards, high quality, but also the price comes within that. I know a lot of Ghanaian companies, producing companies, that complain, say, oh, the price is too high, I'd rather buy the same product from China. And that, of course, encourages more trade with China. But when I look at the trade relations, I would say, I mean, I'm European myself, but I would say the relationship between Ghana and EU is long-term and has to be maintained in a way. So the EU has also to look at aspects of having increased competitiveness of Ghana, so that the level of the economy would rise, and they can afford buying products from Europe. That's the long-term relationship that we emphasize. So it goes both ways. Now, to import your machinery will be more expensive, but at the same time, I'll be more competitive. And if I'm more competitive, then I will also buy more goods from Europe.
Yeah. Our brother from Suriname.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Samuel. Yes, and I'm the representative of the ambassador of Suriname to Ghana. Yes, so my question, it's not a question, it's just a contribution. So I think one way Ghana can make use of the agricultural opportunity is through knowledge exchange. Why? Because Ghana has Gary, yes, and Suriname, the Maroons of Suriname has Gary as well. And the Maroons of Suriname have developed Gary into crackers, into cassava bread, they've added value to Gary. So how can Ghana, bridge that gap and then, get the knowledge from Suriname and then be able to, maximize the opportunity on the EU front? So it can be done through the acquisition of direct flights. There's no direct flight to Suriname. and Suriname is right across the Atlantic Ocean. Yes, across Ghana. It takes 6 hours to get to Suriname from Ghana, but because there's no direct flight, it takes you 20 hours. That's when you go through the Netherlands. And that's very, bad. It's very pathetic. We've had this relationship with Ghana for years. And I think the acquisition of direct flights could help bridge this gap and, maximize the opportunity Ghana has. And also for, on cultural basis, for fashion, Suriname has been able to add value to the kente we have, to the cloth we have. They've developed it into pangies. So, this is developed in Suriname by the Maroons, and it's very beautiful. It's something that we could add, value to. We could exchange this knowledge and then, increase Ghana's, opportunity. And also, I want to touch on the art and design. We always talk about STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I think it's high time we give chance to art and design. That's to get steamed up. We have to get steamed up. We have to give prominence to the children who have skills in art, the children who have skills in design. When we give attention to these sectors, I believe it will maximize Ghana's opportunity as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Samuel. Thank you very much. Those are very, very important points you make, especially on the issue of direct flights between, and it's not just Suriname, it's most African countries. You can't fly directly from Accra to Juba, for example. You can't fly directly from Accra to, let's say, Liberia. You have
You
to.
can. You
have
enter
to
Kenya
lot of stops.
Airways and then you fly sometimes first to Sierra Leone and then to Liberia or vice versa. So
Yes. So it's a very important point to make. And I think that, for me, with AF, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, if we are supposed to reap the benefits of such a laudable agreement, we have to have a way of connecting ourselves. Thank you very much for your inputs. Yes, thank you. Yes. Okay. So let me go online and then I'll come back to you. This, I think, Charlie, this will be your question. From the point of view of the EU, somebody wants to ask, from the point of view of the EU and the Netherlands Chamber, are Ghanaian ports and airports more competitive? Are we competitive with our ports and airports with regards to tariff, processing time, and even the quality of service and everything? Do you think we are competitive?
fortunately, with the airport, it's a big no. I spoke with the boss of KLM Air France, and Kotka Airport is the most expensive airport, and I mean for airlines
To land.
to land, etc.
Is it in Africa?
The most expensive airport of Africa, that's what he said, and it's the 5th expensive airport in the world. So that's the amount of money which you have to put on extra on the ticket to pay for all these. So it's a good airport, I think, but it's very expensive. And I mean, it was even worse when it was COVID. And on the port, there's a lot of issues, but the benefit, of course, is that I think, but I have to be sure that at MPS it's the only deep sea port of West Africa, or I don't know if they have built now another one in Ivory Coast. But
For now, that's it.
so that's very beneficial, but again, procedures at the port, you develop, there's a system and it should be all online, but in practice it's still not working online, so that is a little bit.
So there you have it. Kotoka International Airport is the most expensive airport
Of the continent of Africa.
of the continent of Africa. The most expensive airport of the continent of Africa, and it is the 5th most expensive in the whole world. In the whole world. There you have it. Okay. Somebody, Abeshi from University of Ghana, I say it's not a question, but could we have a comeback on the details of the EPA. It looks like a lot needs to be known and understood. Okay, so obviously we're discussing, we will have, and you are from University of Ghana, we are going to have a session with Nicholas at the University of Ghana. We are going to, we're going to try and have it in collaboration with the Department of Economics with the University of Ghana. GHIA will have it. So at a better time, at a later date, we'll let you know. And then we have Araban Nam from is it WHO?
Yes.
Okay. It says, please, what are some of the funding companies, such organizations that can assist or help SMEs in Ghana? What are some of the funding companies? I don't know, maybe, I don't know if you can answer, but Nicholas mentioned the Ghana Enterprises Agency. Yeah, that's one that comes to mind. And then
within the Dutch realm, we have got an organization called Invest International.
Invest International.
We're going to do a kind of online seminar, but so they finance entrepreneurs and companies or existing companies who want to invest in Ghana. And we also have, because it's sometimes hard to get finance from a bank, but there always has to be a Dutch link. So then it should be a partnership with a Ghanaian company.
Yeah, Ghanaian company, okay.
I don't think it's open to SMEs. But we have that seminar at the end of this month, I think on Tuesday the 30th of May. So please follow our website.
Okay, so Abraham from Farprint, he says, in your opinion, what are some of the main challenges of the EPA to Ghana's economy? I think you touched on it. Challenges of the EPA to Ghana's economy. I don't know if you want to take that.
Well, from a micro point of view, a company point, enterprise point of view, is the main challenge is understanding the EPA and understanding the requirements that it takes to export to the EU. I don't see major challenges on a macro point of view. Is a treaty, is an agreement, a trade agreement that has come to stay between the EU and Ghana can benefit a lot of it. The challenge, I would say, is for companies to be able to be competitive, to be able to meet those quality standards and norms in order to export to the EU. Once you meet them, you are able to export to any country in the world because those standards are so high that you can also export to other countries than just the EU market.
I saw a hand in there. I saw a hand in there.
Okay, thank you so much for the insightful discussion. My name is Godfrey, and I would like to get your opinion on the AFCFTA, which is trying to encourage African countries to trade and then cooperate among themselves in all aspects of the economy. I would like to know, don't you think that with the introduction of the AFTA is going to reduce business between Africa and the EU or Europe world? If so, how do you think that African countries could be able to manage and then work it in the way that we can both benefit it equally? Thank you.
So obviously it's a question to
It's a question to you. It's a question to you.
Well, there have been a lot of talks about like the AFCFTA competing with the EPA, but that is not really the case. The EU Commission is strongly supporting a lot of activities to develop the AFCFTA, and if you learn how to export to the EU, you'll be also using that experience to export to any African country. Now, the EU has different requirements. You have certain requirements to the EU, but if you want to export to Burkina Faso, it doesn't mean that you can't export anymore to. It will just be an expansion of the market base that you are having. You are expanding to the EU. The only restriction would be your production capacity. And then you have certain levels of quality that you can decide this is more for that type of country, Burkina Faso, maybe Cote d'Ivoire, and this one, because of the requirements from the EU, has to be a higher level of quality. So there's no real competition between those areas. And on the contrary, the FCFTA is like also a trade agreement very similar to the EPA. Is opening up your markets. You just have to be prepared in terms of competitiveness to entrance from other African countries like Morocco, Egypt, Kenya, whoever. And that is why you need to have the right production capacity, the right competitive cost of doing business, and also a good knowledge of the market requirements.
I think it's very important, the AFCTA, because if I look in West Africa, we have had the ECOWAS since the 70s.
Yes.
And still it's very hard for Ghanaian companies to just plain export from Ghana to Nigeria. Although on paper it should be very easy. And sometimes you have to basically export to Europe and then from Europe go to Nigeria, which is insane. So I really hope that the FCTA will also get rid of all these artificial borders, because you should do business with your neighbors. Yeah.
This is a loaded question from one of our viewers online. It's also in relation to the AFCTA. Wanted to know your general thoughts about it and how we can turn Africa into an EU-like powerhouse with Ghana at the center.
Just to follow up, I mean, for investment from the Netherlands, if the AFCTA is working, then I can set up my company here in Ghana, and my market is also bigger because I produce, and then I can export not only, I can sell not only in Ghana, but I can also sell in Ivory Coast and all the other countries. So I think it's only beneficial also for the amount of investors coming from Europe, because now your market is not limited anymore to Ghana, but to a lot of countries who have signed up and are following up on the treaty.
So the danger, sorry,
I'd like to add, talking about the center of having Ghana at the center of the AFCFTA, it is there already because the secretariat is in Accra. So which is a wonderful step made by government to attract the attention and have the whole of African countries meeting here to decide and negotiate and have that treaty being implemented. But as Channing is saying, yes, it's a great opportunity for Ghanaian enterprises to have a partnership with European companies in order to export to other African countries, given that agreement, that special agreement. And the AFCFTA is presenting a lot of opportunities. We just need to have it operationalized and have those agreements being put into place. Yeah, it is.
From my perspective, I mean, putting together everything we've discussed from the beginning, there are genuine challenges to foreign investors coming into Ghana, and the danger is that should the AFCTA be fully implemented, Ghana can easily go out of, we can lose a lot of investment. So then what it means is that if Senegal is very favorable, I'll just go and set up in Senegal.
Yes.
And then bring the goods to Ghana.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you lose the jobs, you lose the tax revenue, you lose...
Yeah, but whose mistake is that then?
That is it. So that is why it's very important that
So you
Ghana,
need to focus on
we
your
have
own,
to-
on your own
exactly.
power, and you have to see that you have a vigilant, good economy, which is also friendly to investors.
Exactly.
There's thinking behind it.
is there.
You can also say, well, I don't trust these foreigners because they're colonialists and they're only taking away produce from our country. Okay, then you lock your whole country and they say, okay, nobody can come in. Well, some countries did that in the past. North Korea is a good example. But
The Hermit Kingdom.
so,
Okay.
May I don't know whether this is a question or a comment. My name is Tagiachi. In this discussion, when we discuss ease of doing business in Ghana, often we find that the focus drifts to tax issues registration issues, formalities. Sometimes we frame this in terms of the framework and so on and so forth. So in the process, I think, so this is where I'm leaving the issue for discussion. I think that we miss out on a very important aspect of ease of doing business for the business people in whichever country, Ghana not being the exception. There are, and I suspect that this could be subsumed under the framework, but in discussing the framework, sometimes it gets lost. And I'm talking now about the infrastructure and the services that support businesses.
Yeah.
This, in my view, one of the main reasons why African, if you like, sub-Saharan African countries, even though, let me make the distinction, sub-Saharan African countries, that these service sectors are not well developed. So you are talking about shipping, transport, finance, professional services like insurance, even my own profession, lawyers, getting your business registered, and these are, I'm aware of a situation where somebody, a Ghanaian business, got an order to supply manufactured products from Ghana to Guinea. 2 containers. You couldn't find a ship to take the containers from Ghana to Guinea.
From Accra to Conakry.
From Tema to Conakry.
From Tema to Conakry.
Yes, because all the shipping lines, oh, this is too small, we won't stop.
They have to truck it.
We don't stop. Well, if you insist, we will put it on board. But we will sail past Conakry. When we are coming back from Europe, if there is enough cargo, we will stop. Otherwise, it will stay on the ship and keep going up and down. You know, I mean, if you were your average business entity in these countries are not very big, and they are trading in small volumes.
Yeah.
However, if you were that small and you were in Europe or in Ghana, and you wanted to trade between Europe and Ghana, it wouldn't be as difficult as trading, you know, with ourselves in here. And I see that as a serious challenge.
No, but it's the same here. I mean, we've been talking about the railway network here in Ghana. We have a special minister for railways, and if they would basically put in a proper, they have the plans, but the results are not seen yet. But that would be a major improvement also for the logistics in this country, because also then you need less trucks who are destroying the roads, etc. And but then I see that they have developed the train from Tema to Accra. It runs twice a day, and it's almost empty. And they've so. I think there's a big challenge, and I think the idea of making a whole railway line to Paga, that would be excellent. But yeah, you need to, I don't know, it needs to be like a big project with a lot of, it will take years. So you need to have a vision for 10 years vision, it sounds right.
I heard about the railway to Paga all my life.
Okay.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah, well, I heard during election time about the Sky Train. I thought, because it's not going to go. But we have in our network also very good company lawyers, insurance brokers, banks. So I'm not totally agreeing with you that that is undeveloped in Ghana. Very good Ghanaian companies who are giving the good service, which I also advise to Dutch companies who come here. But on the aspect of infrastructure, I totally agree with you. And there's a lot of when you a lot of countries here have not much trade, and the ship is not going to stop in Guinea-Conakry for one container. It's just dollars and cents.
But the point is, because of that,
Yes.
the trade between these two countries doesn't exist.
On keeping those enterprises still competitive, keeping those enterprises who are trying to survive and still be able to do business. And for foreign companies not to decide to stop their plans, their future projects, or even divest and go to another country. I think the dialogue is very essential in this respect.
Dialogue. Charlie, what's your remarks?
I agree, but then it's even better as from that dialogue also agreements come and implemented, so that actually the rules and regulations are improved and the doing business in Ghana will be easier. And your best, you call it the bird in the mine is basically the existing companies who are here. If they're not satisfied, then the investment will not come. But dialogue, we are quite good in dialogue. But dialogue also needs to have benefit in the sense that, okay, then we're going to do this, and then, because that's the next step. Because we can talk, and talk. Yeah.
You know, we all talk. Okay, so takeaway, we need to dialogue, but the dialogue needs to lead somewhere in agreements, and the agreement must not sit on paper, they should be implemented. And biggest takeaway for me is that Suriname has done a lot with Gary that Ghana can learn from. Cassava, is it Gary, bread, and all these things. So yes. I would like to taste cassava bread. I mean, it may sound a bit on the light side, but it goes to the heart of our attitude as a people, that we've been with Gary for so many years. It's the same Gary we go and buy and give no value addition, and look at what others have done with it. So this has been a very interesting conversation for us. Once again, this is NCO International Affairs Ghana. This is the maiden edition of our CASA event. We'll be having a series of events, and as time goes on, we're advertising them in due time. Thank you very much for spending your early morning and almost afternoon with us. We'll talk again. See you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Samuel, I'm so sad for Ghana with the Gary.